I'm Grace. I'm 38 years old, an architect by profession, and until 3 nights ago, I was a wife of 10 years. When my husband Daniel zipped up a single suitcase and told me he was leaving, he expected tears. He expected chaos. He expected me to beg. He didn't get any of it. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the house I had designed from the ground up. Cool gray walls, warm oak floors, clean lines, intentional spaces. Normally, silence in our home felt peaceful. That night, it felt hollow, like a cathedral after the congregation had vanished. Daniel didn't shout when he left. He delivered his line calmly, almost theatrically. "I'm moving out tonight. Don't try to stop me." And then he waited. But I didn't move. I didn't cry. I didn't plead. Instead, something strange settled over me. A cold, steady calm. The kind you feel right after an earthquake, when the shaking stops but the dust is still floating in the air. As his car engine roared and disappeared down the street, I realized something unsettling. This ending hadn't come out of nowhere. It had been building for years. I just hadn't wanted to see the cracks. As an architect, I believe in foundations. If the base is solid, the structure stands. I applied that same logic to my marriage. Daniel and I built what looked from the outside like a perfect life. Stable careers, a beautiful suburban home, shared investments, long-term plans. But over the past year, the structure began to shift. It started with spontaneity. Daniel came home one Tuesday glowing with excitement. He'd found a non-refundable flash deal for a luxury beach resort and wanted to leave that Friday. I had a final client presentation scheduled for that same day. A project I'd been leading for 6 months. "I can't cancel," I told him gently. "This project matters." His excitement curdled into irritation. "You're always working, Grace. You schedule everything. You never just live." We had just returned from a planned coastal trip 2 months earlier, but that didn't count. It wasn't spontaneous enough. He went without me, with his newly divorced friend Kyle. The photos flooded social media. Neon lights, boat parties, younger crowds. He looked energized, almost boyish. But something about it felt forced. Like a man trying to outrun his reflection. I told myself it was a phase. Then came the car. Our practical sedan suddenly represented everything he claimed to resent. Routine, predictability, adulthood. He wanted a flashy 2-seater sports car that made zero financial sense. "Imagine us driving with no destination," he said. "Just freedom." I ran the numbers. Insurance. Maintenance. He accused me of suffocating him with responsibility. We compromised on a slightly sportier model, but he barely drove it. Instead, he took rideshares downtown, as if distancing himself from the life we had built together. The garage became symbolic. His disappointment parked next to my practicality. But the biggest crack wasn't the trips or the car. It was his phone. Over the last 6 months, it never left his hand. He smiled at it, turned it away from me instinctively. Stayed up late texting about campaign collaborations and brand partnerships. "Who are you talking to?" he asked once. "Work," he replied sharply. "You wouldn't understand." He made me feel paranoid, old-fashioned, out of touch. Now, standing alone in my living room after he walked out, those isolated incidents lined up perfectly. They weren't random frustrations. They were stepping stones. He hadn't fallen out of love overnight. He had been slowly exiting our life while still living in it. And tonight, he wanted a dramatic finale. He wanted me shattered on the floor so he could feel justified. But I refused to give him the performance. What he didn't know was this. If he thought walking out was the boldest move of the night, he had no idea what I was about to do next. Because while he was chasing freedom, I was about to secure my foundation. And by morning, the house he left would no longer be his. The silence after Daniel left didn't break me. It activated me. For a few minutes, I stood in the center of the living room, listening to the stillness. I kept waiting for the grief to crash over me. Didn't. What came instead was clarity. If my life had just been shaken, then the first step was stabilization. Picked up my phone. Not to call my mother. Not to scroll through old photos. Not to cry to a friend. Called my sister. Emily is a litigation attorney. Sharp, efficient, allergic to drama. "It's late," she answered groggily. "Grace, what's wrong?" "Daniel moved out," I said evenly. "I need the name of the most strategic divorce lawyer you know." There was a pause. Then her voice changed. Fully awake now. I'll text you the best one in the city. No sympathy. No gasping. Just action. Exactly what I needed. Within 10 minutes, I had left a voicemail requesting an emergency consultation for the next morning. Step 1. Legal protection in motion. Next, I opened my laptop. Our joint banking app loaded slowly, and for the first time that night my pulse quickened. There it was. A $2,500 cash withdrawal from an ATM near his office, earlier that afternoon. He hadn't stormed out impulsively. He had planned this. Then I scrolled further. Upscale restaurants, cocktail lounges, boutique clothing stores, charges from places we had never visited together. He had been financing his new beginning with shared money. That was the moment the cold anger arrived. Not explosive, not loud. Clean. Focused. I logged into my private savings account, the one I had opened years ago, just in case. A precaution I'd almost felt guilty about keeping. I calculated carefully. Half the joint savings. My recent paychecks. Enough to cover the mortgage and utilities. Click. Transfer complete. The joint account balance dropped significantly. Step 2. Assets secured. Then I opened the credit card portal. The primary account was under my name. Daniel was an authorized user. There was a small, almost innocent-looking option. Report card lost or stolen. I selected his card. A confirmation window appeared. This action cannot be undone. I didn't hesitate. Confirm. Step 3. Access revoked. But I wasn't finished. At 10:47 p.m., I called a 24-hour locksmith. Yes, I said calmly. I need the house rekeyed tonight. An hour later, a technician stood on my porch. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. As I stood in the kitchen listening to the metallic drilling sounds, something inside me shifted permanently. The old locks were being removed. The old access points erased. When he handed me the new keys, they felt heavier than metal. They felt like ownership. Step 4. Perimeter secured. I didn't sleep. Instead, I reclaimed. I stripped the bed and replaced the sheets with fresh lavender linen. I boxed Daniel's clothes carefully and moved them into the guest room. His shoes, his jackets, his cologne from the bathroom counter. It wasn't rage-fueled. It was methodical. By sunrise, the bedroom no longer smelled like him. Smelled like a new beginning. The next morning, I wore my sharpest tailored suit and met with the attorney Emily recommended. Ms. Carter was composed, direct, and frighteningly competent. I outlined everything. His departure, the cash withdrawal, the transfers, the cancelled credit card, the lock change. When I finished, she leaned back slightly. Most clients come in emotionally devastated, she said. You came in prepared. I don't like structural instability, I replied. A faint smile touched her lips. You've done everything correctly so far. We'll file immediately. The first crack in Daniel's fantasy arrived that afternoon. My phone buzzed. Daniel, my card was declined. What did you do? This is humiliating. Humiliating. That's what he was worried about. 20 minutes later, another message. Daniel. Did you seriously change the locks? I'm locked out. Then the call started. I didn't answer. Finally, I sent one message. Carefully worded, legally neutral. Given your decision to permanently move out, I've secured the home and our finances. All further communication should go through my attorney. You'll receive her contact information shortly. The response was immediate. Calls, texts, anger. His script wasn't unfolding the way he imagined. He expected heartbreak. He got logistics. He wanted drama. He got paperwork. And as the messages grew more frantic, I realized something powerful. He hadn't prepared for consequences. He had prepared for applause. What he didn't know was this. The woman he thought would beg him to come home had already changed the locks on the future. And in less than 48 hours, his freedom was about to feel a lot less exciting. Because reality was coming. And it was louder than any slammed door. 3 days passed. 3 quiet, controlled, surprisingly productive days. After Daniel's initial storm of angry messages, the silence returned. But this time it wasn't hollow. Felt intentional. Earned. Through a mutual friend, I learned he was staying on Kyle's couch. The same friend also mentioned, carefully, almost apologetically, that the young social media consultant Daniel had been spending time with had suddenly gone quiet. Apparently, a mid-divorce marketing manager wasn't aligned with her carefree lifestyle brand. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt unsurprised. Daniel's new life had been built on adrenaline and ego. Remove the shared finances, the house, the stability, and suddenly the fantasy looked very small. Meanwhile, I continued reclaiming mine. I met with a financial advisor. I adjusted automatic payments. I updated account passwords. I boxed the last of his belongings and labeled them neatly. The guest room became what I privately called the exit room. The master bedroom was mine again. That's when the grief arrived. Not explosive but steady. I cried one evening while folding towels. Not because I wanted him back, but because I was mourning the version of him I thought I had married. 10 years. 10 years of plans, holidays, anniversaries, dreams. It's strange how quickly someone can step outside of the life you built together and become unrecognizable. On the third night my phone rang. His name lit up the screen. For a moment my heart stumbled. I considered ignoring it. Instead I answered. Grace. His voice was different. The arrogance was gone. The anger gone. What remained was something raw, fractured. I messed up, he said, breath hitching. I made a huge mistake. He was crying. Not dramatically. Not performatively. Desperately. I don't know what I was thinking. I was overwhelmed. It didn't mean anything. That girl, it was nothing. I was just stupid. Love you. Please. Can I come home? 3 days ago, home was his prison. Now it was his refuge. He spoke quickly, words tumbling over one another. His car didn't work. Kyle's couch was uncomfortable. Things weren't what he imagined. This wasn't a confession of love. It was a confession of inconvenience. And that distinction changed everything. When he finally stopped talking, I realized something important. He wasn't apologizing because he understood the damage. He was apologizing because the damage had inconvenienced him. And for the first time in our marriage, I saw him clearly. What he didn't realize was this. The decision had already been made. And I wasn't about to reverse it. Part 4. The call that changed everything. I let the silence stretch after his plea. He was waiting for softness, for nostalgia, for weakness. Instead he got calm. You're right, I said evenly. You made a mistake. Relief flooded his voice instantly. I know. No. I'll fix it. But your mistake wasn't leaving, I continued. He went quiet. Your mistake was believing I'd still be here as your safety net. The air shifted. You didn't leave confused, I said. You left confident. You wanted to see me fall apart. You wanted drama to justify your choice. That's not fair. You told me not to stop you, I reminded him. I respected that. I explained that I had retained legal counsel. That the paperwork had begun. You called a lawyer. His voice cracked. Grace, that's extreme. Well, what was extreme was detonating a decade of marriage with a smirk. You ended our marriage the moment you walked out, I said quietly. I'm just formalizing it. He tried again. Promise therapy. Promise change. Promise spontaneity, romance, anything I wanted. But promises after consequences aren't transformation. They're damage control. You don't miss me, I told him gently. You miss stability. The truth hurt him more than anger would have. Please, he whispered. And in that moment, I understood something deeply freeing. I wasn't choosing between love and pride. I was choosing between self-respect and self-erasure. You can arrange a time with the attorneys to collect your belongings, I said. Do not contact me directly again. I ended the call. Then I blocked his number. The finality was physical, like exhaling after holding my breath for years. And for the first time since he left, felt lighter. But what I didn't know yet was that he wasn't finished trying to rewrite the story. 2 days after the call, I received an email from Daniel's work account. Subject line, please. He claimed he had nowhere stable to go. That Kyle was getting tired of the situation. That work had noticed his distraction. Consequences were multiplying. And suddenly I was the villain in his narrative. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard the story shifting. Grace overreacted. Grace is cold. Grace changed the locks immediately. Grace hired a lawyer before talking it through. It almost impressed me. How quickly he reframed abandonment as my cruelty. For a moment I questioned myself. Was I too decisive? Too unemotional? But then I replayed the memory of him standing in the doorway, smirking, expecting tears. He hadn't wanted reconciliation. He wanted spectacle. And when I denied it, he panicked. That week, I finalized the initial filing. When the papers were served, I was told he looked stunned, as if consequences were a concept that applied to other people. He tried once more, this time through Emily. "She's being dramatic," he reportedly said. "We can fix this." But I wasn't fixing something he had intentionally broken. I was building something new. And the more distance I created, the clearer I saw. The marriage hadn't ended the night he left. It had ended the moment he decided I would always stay, no matter how he treated me. What he failed to understand was simple. Loyalty without respect isn't love. It's habit. And I was done living as someone's habit. Still, the hardest moment was yet to come. The day he returned to collect his things. He arrived on a Saturday afternoon. Per the agreement, he was allowed 30 minutes. My attorney insisted I not be alone, so Emily sat in the kitchen while he packed. When I opened the door, I barely recognized him. No leather jacket, no confidence, just fatigue. He stepped inside cautiously, as if entering a museum of his former life. The house was immaculate, different. He walked to the guest room, the exit room, and stared at the neatly stacked boxes. "You really packed everything," he said softly. "Yes." He moved slowly, lingering over small items. "Photos. Old souvenirs." "This didn't have to happen," he murmured. I didn't argue. Because it didn't have to. He chose it. At the doorway, suitcase in hand again, he looked at me. "I thought you'd fight for us." There it was. The truth. He equated love with resistance. Drama with devotion. "I did fight," I replied calmly. "For 10 years. You just stopped fighting with me." He didn't respond. He stepped outside. This time when the door closed, it didn't echo. It settled. And I understood something profound. He didn't lose me because he left. He lost me because he underestimated me. That evening, I sat alone in my living room. Not hollow, not shattered. Free. Not because I survived him, but because I refused to shrink for him. So here's the real question. When someone shows you they'd rather watch you break than grow with you, do you beg them to stay? Or do you thank them for revealing exactly who they are? Because sometimes the strongest move you can make is not stopping someone when they walk away. It's locking the door behind them and building something better.